Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. What if you were completely invincible? No, wait. What if you were completely unstoppable? No, that's not it. What if you were completely uncopyable as a salesperson and as a sales professional? Wow, wouldn't that be awesome? Well, you are in luck. I've got my friend Kay Miller right here, the queen of uncopyable sales secrets. Kay, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you for that great intro. And I agree. What if you were uncopyable? You know, when we see someone doing something that works, everybody else wants to copy that. And they try, and often they succeed. And if they cannot do that, what an advantage you have, right?
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your professional backstory and what brought you to the amazing work that you're doing today as the queen of uncopyable sales secrets. And then we'll dive in from there. But tell us a little bit about the backstory of what brought you here.
Yes. Well, after college, I had a marketing degree in college, and I wasn't really planning on being in sales. And I think that applies to a lot of salespeople. We don't set out to be salespeople for various reasons. We have a really bad opinion of what we think sales is supposed to be. And that's a big one. We think it's scary. We think that people are going to hate us and that we have to be smooth talkers and talk people into what they don't really want to do. So I was excited about starting my marketing career. And then I found out, you're not qualified for marketing unless you have an MBA. So you are qualified for sales. And so I thought, okay, that would be okay. I can handle that. And on campus, they had some interviews, like I remember my top pick was Procter and Gamble. Oh, I could just see myself selling health and beauty items. And I thought that would be perfect for me. But guess what? I was not perfect for them, apparently. This was a long time ago, and the job market in 1982 was pretty bad. So I had to get scrappy and find a sales job. And I ended up being the very first woman ever hired by a company called Amarok. Hardly anyone pronounces that right, but it's Amarok, and it's still around. It's a company that has cabinet hardware for builders and for hardware stores, lumber yards. And they really wanted to hire women, but, hadn't done it yet. And probably not a lot of women were clamoring to be working in that company. But hey, I took the job and I excelled. And I didn't have all the framework that I have and that we're going to talk about being uncopyable, but I did do a lot of those things and really put myself on the map, and was hired away then by an automotive company. So I was in aftermarket sales for a company called Walker Exhaust, and they manufacture mufflers, catalytic converters, and exhaust pipes. And so this was this very glamorous job that I had, calling on distributors and their customers to sell aftermarket exhaust products. So I, once again, hard worker, did some things that we're going to talk about today, and I became the number one salesperson. And at that time, there were a few women. I wasn't the only woman. I was one of very few, but I still became number one, beating out most of the guys. So that is my cred. I got the nickname Muffler Mama, which has still stuck with me to this day. And that's uncopyable. And not only can it not be copied, people don't really want to copy it. So, then later on, my husband, Steve Miller, and great speaker, consultant, author, blah, blah, blah.
I'm not going to hold that against you, though.
Yeah, please
really
don't.
Not. Yeah.
And he and I worked together, and I was his marketing and sales person. So I was his pimp, really sold him. And that's what I've done ever since, until recently, the last few years, I've been doing more of the sales consulting. I wrote a book, Uncopyable Sales Secrets, because we all want to know a secret. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm coaching, speaking, mostly virtually, and selling books, peddling books.
We also haven't talked about perhaps your most important job title, which is Kelly's mom.
Kelly's mom, yes. Steve,
tell us about Kelly. Tell us how she's doing. Give us the whole Kelly's mom story.
So yeah, we have one child, an only child, and she's always been our world. Steve, his official title has always been Kelly's dad, and people have really, that's set him apart. Really, people really love it. But now, of course, she's 30 years old, which, again, I'm old. She actually is in sales. She's a golfer. She golfed all through college, and then she went to work for Callaway. And now she works for Maui Jim Sunglasses, and she's still in sales. And I love talking with her because sometimes I wonder, hey, is the stuff I'm doing, is that outdated, or do I still know what I'm talking about? No, this all still really applies. And she, in fact, just won a top award for Maui Jim for her sales achievement. So, hey, I love to have her to learn from too.
Hang on. Let's back up the truck. Beep, 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 beep. Listen, I have a brand new sales book out there. You got to get your hands on it. It is awesome. It is amazing. It is fantastic. It is useful, practical, actionable, and a ton of bonuses are waiting for you over at doitselling.com. Grab your copy right now and grab all the bonuses, goodies, companion tools, and downloads that go with the book. You'll love it. I guarantee it.
Well, tell us about the book. Many cool things in this book. The first thing that jumped out at me is that you have two very distinct sections of the book. The first book is called Before Contact. And I think a lot of sales professionals and consultants and professional services firms neglect this part. And they think sales starts when you start selling, right? Sales starts with that first sales conversation. So it's Before Contact is part one, and then engagement is part two. Tell us why you organized the book this way. And then let's start with a little bit of Before Contact mojo.
Okay. Well, yes. A big part of sales, I do believe, is mindset. And, deciding how you look at sales. What does that mean to you? And of course, no surprise, just like you, the type of salespeople who I want to emulate, who I respect, who I want to be, are the people who really want to serve the customer. So you really need to define how you're going to, define success. And if it's getting your customer what you want, you really have to have that philosophy, your why, your reason. And then another thing that you really have to address is what's going to stop you from calling on customers, potential customers. And I have quite a big section about fear, because the people that are honest admit that sometimes it is hard to pick up that phone. Sometimes it is hard to talk to someone, to make a cold call, because it's scary. You do have the potential of being rejected. And then the other part of sales, which really has been integral to my success in every position, is your strategy. And we call it your moose strategy. And so I know not everybody can see my background, but I have a big picture of a moose. And in our Uncopyable framework, we call your ideal target market your moose. And so we are moose hunters. Knowing exactly who your moose is means you are going to be picking out the clients, the prospects who will bring you the biggest bang for the buck, and that you will serve the best, right? So it's not this spray and pray. And I think I heard you mentioning that on one of your podcast interviews recently that I was listening to, that as much as we advise against that, people do still do that. It's such a better strategy to really get in touch with who your ideal prospect is, who you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck, and who you'll be able to serve. And back when I became Muffler Mama, number one salesperson, I was very strategic about the kinds of customers that I wanted to add to my mix. These are relationship sales. They're customers that will be buying from you on an ongoing basis. And really looking at the long-term value of a customer is huge in becoming a successful salesperson. And that's all done before you start doing any selling.
Now, I'm curious because, I'm sure we could both argue. Like, we're in debate class, pro and con, and then we would change roles, pro and con. B2B, right? Business to business selling versus B2C, business to consumer selling. With the Muffler Mama award and designation, were you selling to individual consumers like car owners, or were you selling to like trucking companies and companies that had fleets of cars?
Yeah, this was all B2B. This was not a one and done. So I did sell. So maybe I should thank you for asking that, because I sold to distributors who then sold to muffler shops. And then those muffler shops would be the ones that would sell to the consumer.
Okay.
So this was all B2B relationship.
Perfect.
Selling.
So you're looking at all the car parts distributors across the country. And then what were some of your criteria that, well, here's a moose. Oh, not a moose, not a moose, moose. How could you tell from the outside that you were targeting a moose?
Well, one of them would be, are they covering a geographic location that I have not covered? So is there a place in the market that I don't have covered? Also, what size are they? How big are they? If they start buying from me, what kind of impact will that be on my sales? Because it's all about the numbers. It really is. And I had a boss saying, okay, here's your target. Then also, I wanted to know what if they were carrying a product that I could really sell against, that I had a clear advantage that would be not an easy sale, but a pretty good sale. And I would find out, from the muffler shops, not to sell to them, but to find out who they were buying from so that I could find out the very best prospects for me. So really it was looking at their geography, the strength of their business, how many salespeople they might have, how they do business, and what product lines they're carrying.
So they had to be the right size, the right geography, have the right product mix where you're really either filling a need or you're superior to what they're already using. And if they didn't meet all of these criteria, my guess is you wouldn't even reach out.
Right. Because, I also did not want to compete with my customers, right? And that gets to be a real tricky, sticky wicket, right, in that market sometimes. Right. I want to support my best customers. And, I did some sneaky things that back in the day to help my customers. There was a muffler distributor who sold a product that we had a superior product to, but I didn't want to sell them directly. So what I did is I went to that warehouse and I followed their delivery van so that I could see which accounts they were calling on, because I knew we had an advantage. Well, how much do you think my distributor appreciated that when I said, hey, here's a list of accounts that we can go after, that we've got a superior product to? That made me a huge hero. And then I supported and strengthened my customer. And there's no real clear-cut rule on that, because you have to decide, but you really don't want to mess up your good customers, your distributors that are supporting you.
Yes. Well, and the whole criteria piece reminds me, I had a client years ago. She had a fairly large training company. And I asked her, I didn't use this language because I didn't know this language until I met you. Who's your moose, essentially, right? Who's your ideal target prospect? And she said to me, oh, David, that's easy. It has to be a pharmaceutical company. They have to have a global presence, and they need over 10,000 employees. I looked at her, I was like, wow, that is So break down each piece of criteria there. Well, pharmaceutical, because that's where we initially established the beachhead and that's where we're known. So we have the right names to drop and the right stories to tell. Why global? And Kay, you'll love this, because my husband and I love to travel. So if they have an office in Paris, we're going to do the training in Paris. They have an office in Cairo, we're going to Cairo. They have an office in Dubai, we're going to Dubai. They have an office in Vancouver, we're going to Vancouver. So they have to be global, because I don't want to just be going to Orlando and Boston and Houston and Vegas. Nothing wrong with those towns, by the way. And then I said, why 10,000 people? She said, because I want them to use me a lot. I don't want to have to go find a whole bunch of onesies. I want these whales that when we get in, they go, oh my gosh, we have so many people that need this training. So think about that universe, right? And this was totally, I'm saying this not unkindly, it was totally generic communication skills training, right? Communication skills, presentation, delegation, leadership, communicate. Millions of companies do this. They said pharmaceutical, global, 10,000 plus. If you don't meet these criteria, you'll never hear from me, ever. If you do meet this criteria, and it was probably like a couple hundred companies was her whole universe, and that was it. If you do meet that criteria, man, oh man, she is going to be all over you like nobody's business. And you are going to repeat and refer and upsell and cross-sell and, customer lifetime value. So she had this dialed in, Kay. She was like, well, if I get one of these, the customer lifetime value of that one client is going to be approximately 25 times some little fish, some little onesie over here who wants a couple of training sessions and then disappears forever. So I don't want the $10,000 client. I want the $250,000 client whose value to me is not going to be 10K for a one-off, but it's going to be over the course of multiple years, probably $250,000 or $500,000. And that kind of thinking, because be careful what you want. If you do what you're supposed to do, you'll probably get it, right? Do you want a bunch of serial dead-end onesies? Or do you want to work with these big, amazing companies who repeat and refer and bring you in like crazy? And that was her decision. So until you and I are here talking today, I'm like, oh my God, all the light bulbs are now lighting up for me. That's how to do it strategically.
I love that. And it's so worth the time and effort and thinking before you call on someone. And, I often say when I'm asked, what's one piece of advice that you would, ask, or what's one piece of advice you give? Ask your current customers why they buy. I love that. But also look at your current customers and say, which ones are my favorite ones to work with? And then why would you go, like you're talking about this gal, why would you go outside that? Look at the ones that are going to help you the most and, give you the best results.
Absolutely. And we're talking about Kay's amazing book, Uncopyable Sales Secrets. So now we have taken care of the before contact chapters, namely 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we are firmly in part 2, which is engagement. Contact with the alien species known as prospects, clients, and customers. And this is where the fear comes in, because we can do all the planning and all the preparation and everything is great, Kay. It's like, oh, I have to reach out. We have to make contact with the space aliens. What is your best advice for making contact with the space aliens where they are more likely to appreciate and invite that contact rather than kind of blow you off or reject you?
Well, I have to say, you're right. These aliens, our mothers, I'm sure both taught us, don't talk to strangers, right?
You bet.
So we have this natural fear of talking to strangers. And that is really how you get your first contact with sales with anyone that you want to sell, right? I think the moose part is integral, because if you really decide who your moose is, then you can be more creative in making that contact. And I have a giveaway after the podcast. People can go to uncopyablesales.com/Newman should be easy to remember. And I have a list of ways that you can, what I call, get in the door. And really that's getting on your client's radar in a way that's unique and is value to them. And so it makes it less scary for you. And one of the things that we use a lot, we always have, is using mail, because everything is so online now that we have for years used greeting cards, and we use a service. It's called Mailbox Power. And you can put someone's picture on the front of the card. And it's so easy to find someone's picture now. You can find almost anyone, a picture of them, or even better, their dog.
Yeah.
And you can send something in the mail. So we do use mail a lot, which is much less scary. And then, of course, you still do call and follow up. But I recommend that you introduce yourself in some way before you ever contact them. Now, if you're someone like David, who has a whole bunch of books, I'm quite sure that you would send someone a book or make sure that they have a book before you would ever contact them to do business with you. I mean, having a book is the world's best calling card, wouldn't you say?
I would. So I think, Kay, what you're saying is everyone listening, if they don't have a book, the book they should send to people is Uncopyable Sales Secrets. Because you know what? If you can't send your own book because you haven't written one yet, at least send Kay's book. Send them something of value. And then you can say, a lot of people in your situation, you could use some sales help. My friend Kay Miller wrote this amazing book. Here's a copy, my gift to you. And you might be selling something related to sales. You might be selling something unrelated to sales, but gifting people. And I love this idea of sending them a picture of themselves, because they'll chuck your postcard immediately. No one's going to chuck their own picture
your ugly
in the
mug.
trash.
Yeah.
No one's going to chuck
I don't mean your ugly mug.
So
but
fun.
yes, and your book too. I mean, wouldn't our books make a fine companion package there? Sending them a book or something that is of interest to them. And again, if you're talking about this woman that we were, you mentioned, where she's got these huge pharmaceutical companies, I just doubt that she picks up the phone. She doesn't have to. She's got referrals and all of that going for her, that momentum. But if you are someone who wants to get in the door with someone and make an impression, create value for them in some way, that would be your first move. Now, back in the day, I have done plenty of cold calling. I used to pound the pavement. I was in outside sales. And in that case, I have 2 words on how to get over that fear. And that is do it.
I like those 2 words. I like those 2 words. There are ways to warm up a quote unquote cold call. So you're literally, and our friend Art Subcheck of Smart Calling fame, he was on the show just a few weeks ago. He draws a big distinction that I agree with, that an initial prospecting conversation can be very, very different than a quote unquote cold call. Cold call is like almost like he calls it dumb calling as opposed to smart calling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hi, do you want to buy my stuff? Hi, do you want to buy my stuff? Hi, do you want to buy my stuff? And that typically, when people hear the term cold calling, that's what they equate it with. Like, oh my God, I would rather get a root canal. So Kay, what is your definition, understanding the preparation phase, the research phase, the relevance phase? What is your definition of quote unquote cold call, which really we can reframe as initial conversation? How do you lay the groundwork for an initial conversation that is welcomed, or at least they're open to having the conversation, versus categorically saying, click, no thanks, I'm not answering the call, I'm not returning your voicemail, I'm not returning your email? Besides obviously sending something in the mail, which I think is a great warm-up step, what else do you recommend in that kind of warm-up or research phase?
Yeah, well, the more you learn about your moose, the better. And so you're right. Cold calling, even back in the day, I talk about in the first part of my book, a sales call that was a disaster, and it was a cold call. But even at that time, I just was wanting to meet the manager, get to know him, and find out if there's a way to improve his business. And so if you can find out something about your customer, the more you know about them, and right off the bat, of course, we want to know how we can help that person. And if you've got a story of somebody similar that you have helped, that's great. One of the examples in my book, it does involve a greeting card. And this person was selling advertising. And she said, I've looked at, the area you're covering, and I believe you're missing out on some of that business. I'd love to talk to you and see if there's a way for me to help you get it. So to learn something about the customer beforehand, something about their problem, and really come to it with, from the standpoint of, I want to help you solve this problem.
Yeah.
And, even I've had people say, what are you selling? And I said, I don't know if I'm selling anything. It depends on if we're a fit. We might not be a fit. So learning about them first, posturing what you might be able to help them with, but really base it on them. I have, you probably read in the book, I have a whole chapter on being Sherlock. And
let's talk about that next, about that detective. What are some of the detective strategies and detective questions like Sherlock Holmes that you recommend?
Now, so questions, I think it really goes beyond questions when it comes to Sherlock. And I did an interview with a woman who sells RVs. So she is in consumer sales.
Yeah.
And she is the top salesperson in her dealership. And she is just amazing. And she really talks about, you can't just ask the customer, what do you want? Like the saying is like, if Henry Ford, he said, if I would have asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah.
So you're really wanting to find out about, if in B2B, their business, their world, yes, their challenges, but you're also looking for those ideal solutions that they might not even know about and how they might save time or save money. One of the things that I did when I was selling mufflers, I went into one of the customers, the muffler shop, and I said, will you teach me to install a muffler? Which of course was not part of my job. But by doing that, I could learn about the challenges that they wouldn't think to talk to me about or wouldn't know there's an alternative to solving. And that way say, okay, let's talk about what if you could achieve this? What would that mean to you? With this gal named Katie, and she is amazing. You can find her, by the way, on all over the internet with RVs Inside Out. So hashtag RVS Inside Out. And she does what she calls exposure sales. So she will show the customer, talk about something and see how they react. So studying their, body language, their tone of voice, how they're engaging with you so that she could really discern the solution that will get them very excited. So it really has to be customer focused. And how can I help you, your life or your business be better?
So it's a combination of close observation, like Sherlock Holmes and the big magnifying glass, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Very close observation, looking for evidence instead of guessing, and then questioning and peeling the onion and really finding out. I think a lot of people just think it's about the questions, like, oh, here's the questions that you have to ask every prospect. And they don't teach the observing and the listening and really gauging the reactions through very close observation.
Right. Because, I think of, when you go into a retail store, if you can find one anymore, may I help you? What are you looking for? A good B2B or relationship salesperson is really going to act as a guide. And of course, we're talking about getting initial customers, but in my B2B experience, many of the customers like you're working with for a long period of time. And then you're really getting to know the layers of the onion. And this is not like a one-time talk them into something that, is a big sale for you and not good for them. Because you want that relationship where if Kay says, this is what I recommend, and if I were you, this is what I would do, then they say yes. David is, he knows my business and he knows more about this, process than I do. If he advises that, that's really valuable.
Yes.
And
I know
so much
we're
more
going to date ourselves here, but it's like the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton talks,
they listen. People listen. Yes.
And folks, if you're less than about 45 years old, look it up on Wikipedia. It's up there. You'll find it. It's great. It's the old E.F. Hutton commercials. You'll find it on YouTube also. So, Kate, tell us about your moose, because your practice, your speaking, your coaching, your training, you do have a very specific moose, and people listening should know, wait a second, I'm Kay's moose. So who's your moose and how did you come to that decision? What are some of their pains, problems, heartaches, challenges, goals, dreams, aspirations too?
So, as a woman in sales, I am a big cheerleader for other women in sales. And I think I mentioned this earlier on. When I started out in sales, some of the people that were the least nice to me were other women. And I had men that would help me and mentor me and nurture me along, but the women really would see me as competition. So I really have a passion for helping women, especially, I say young women, but everybody's younger than me almost now. So women that are getting into this field and who are or have been in the field. But I think a lot of the sales talk is about kind of playing this game of asking these right questions and getting the person to respond in a certain way. Whereas the true way to really maximize your sales, to have a heart for it, is that you are helping people really truly get what they want, even if they don't know what that is. So women, I love working with, women who are business owners, who have small sales teams. So many business, you can be a college counselor or any type of business, a financial advisor. Part of what you do is sales. And those are the women who I would love to work with and help them be more effective and get over the hurdle of thinking that sales has to be done in a certain way. Because really, I'm going to talk about this gal, Katie, who again is in consumer sales. She says that her goal is that every person she has an interaction with is better for that interaction. So really, win or lose, she considers it a victory. Well, she is the top salesperson in her dealership. It works because she makes more sales, makes repeat sales. She has tons of referrals. She's very enthusiastic about helping customers. And that's the kind of person that I want to work with.
Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff.
Well, as we start to land this plane here, if you were to encapsulate a key takeaway that folks listening to us should really always have top of mind about uncopyable sales, how would you sort of summarize, or what would that big takeaway idea be?
You as a salesperson are such a huge part of the sale. And I have so many stories of, people who changed to a different distributor and ended up taking their customers with them, because the relationship that you have with someone is paramount. And if they trust you, and there's the like, know, and trust, and that's been thrown around for years, but there's also that uncopyable secret ingredient that when someone believes that you want to help them and you do it from the heart, you really have an advantage. And so make it a win for the customer too. And I talk about in the book, nobody likes to be sold. We want to buy. So our job as a salesperson is to help our customer buy, help your customer be really excited about that. And use your own unique story, your personality, who you are, to create that uncopyable package that no one else can offer.
I love that so much. We're not in the sales business. We're in the buying acceleration business.
There you go. There you go. And
there you have
it's not just selfless. I mean, this is all, it's not, sell from the heart, whatever. This is also what makes you most successful. It doesn't oppose wanting to be very, very successful. Like I said, and you talked about this woman, she's so clear about her moves that then she does right by those moves. And, and she can't afford to be that person to everybody.
Right.
Select really who you're going to work with and then go big.
Well, tell us, where can we send people, Kay, to get connected and stay connected to more Kay Miller brilliance and more uncopyable sales secrets? What are some links? How can people reach you and get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and my name is Kay Miller and my LinkedIn is Miller Kay. So I'd love to connect with you there. My book, along with all of David's books, are on Amazon. So be sure to pick up a copy for you and all your friends. I have a giveaway, which is uncopyablesales.com/Newman, as I mentioned, and you can get specific strategies to get in the door. So those are some of the ways that you can find me. Our website's in transition right now, but it's beuncopyable.com. So you can find me there.
Very nice. Well, and you totally, you meaning you listening, you totally need a copy of Kay's book. It is fantastic. Obviously, as the uncopyable sales book, it is different. No matter how many sales books might be on your shelf, it is different. It is smarter, better, cooler, faster. And
I have to say, it's been called more fun. I have tons of stories in the book.
And it's more fun. And it's probably more effective because it's more fun.
There you go. It actually gets read. Yeah.
There you go. So thank you, Kay Miller. You're a rock star. I appreciate you. And we have to have you back on the show, too.
Thank you, David. My pleasure.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.